Thank you so very much for being here tonight. We are here, of course, to celebrate the launch of Margaret Sweatman's seventh novel, Night Birds. You cheer up roaring. This is a fantastic book, and I will not take up much more of your time so that we can get to the main edition. You will notice that we actually conjured up frogs specifically to be evocative this evening, as befits the thriller at the heart of this one. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge, of course, we are here in Treaty 1 territory, and the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Nanaak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. In addition, of course, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. We're so very grateful to Goose Lane Editions, a wonderful Canadian press, for publishing this book in the first place and for making this evening a reality. Margaret's book has been described as intense, visceral, and agile, so you'll be treated to a reading from this particular book in just a few moments. Before I do have a few quick notes about the procedure for the evening. There will be a reading from up here at the podium, followed by a conversation hosted by the inimitable Charlene Diehl to my left. And following that, there'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions. I am going to get you to applaud Charlene as well in just a moment. What I say. When it comes time for the Q&A, please just put your hand up and I'll circulate with this microphone, which isn't because we don't trust you to project, it just ensures that all the good people watching at home can hear your questions as well. At the end of the event, I'll be back to go over signing procedure, but for now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce two literary rock stars who are here this evening. I realize Margaret veers more toward the jazz performatively, but it seems appropriate in this case. Your host, Charlene Diehl, is a writer, editor, performer, former English professor, and recently retired executive director of Zoom Winnipeg, home of the Writers Festival. She has published poetry, personal and academic essays, book and music reviews, and a memoir, Out of Grief Singing, a memoir of motherhood and loss. She co-edited Jazz Magazine for a dozen years and is currently the producer of the Izzy Asper Jazz Performances. In her new role as creative director of the Alan Kloss Program in Health and Humanities at the U of M's College of Medicine, she's sharing her passion for the arts with the extended healthcare community. The wonderful Margaret Sweatman is a novelist, playwright, poet, and performer. Her work has won the Rogers Writers Trust Fiction Prize, the Sunburst Award for Canadian Literature the Fantastic, the Margaret Lawrence Book Award, the Carol Shields Winnipeg Award, and the McNally Robinson Book of the Year Award. She has yet to win, I suppose, a Design or Francophone Award, so that will be forthcoming. Night Birds, as mentioned, is her seventh novel. She lives in Winnipeg. She's here tonight. Please give her an outrageously warm welcome.
Thank you for being here. Very, very grateful to you. It's we're kind of nervous today, and I don't know. You get through these books, and then it's Glenn and I, my husband Glenn and I would say, when you launch something, you're getting married to yourself. So you still feel kind of nauseated. But I'm very, very grateful to you, and I'm grateful to McNally Robinson and to John Taves. We're actually people in across the country envy Winnipeg for McNally, for John Taves, and for the Winnipeg Free Press book section. And I'm grateful to the Goose Lane Editions. This is the fourth book of mine they've done, and I'm really amazed at their high production values, their kindness, their accessibility. And I'd like to thank my family for their inspiration, hope, kindness, and entertainment, and for being here as well. And to friends who have never failed to astonish me. And I'd like to thank my husband, Glenn Veer, who has seen this novel almost expire and then somehow take another breath and survive. And I'm grateful for his patience and his intelligence and for the habit of working. He simply gets to work and just get to work too, despite all the odds that we're all enduring. I will read a short scene. It is, I was thinking today when I was preparing, it's kind of, well, this would be, if I were teaching, this would be Act 3, Scene 3. It's in the middle of the book. And this is Clio, and she's with her daughter, Sydney, who's 15. 10 minutes crawled by. Sydney was a statue in the dark room. Clio felt the limitless pain of the spurned mother. If only Sydney was sulking, but the girl held firm, as if she expected no kindness from the world, no special dispensation, now that she was such a fully complete human being. Clio finally sat up and turned on the lamp. God damn it, tell me what happened in that place that's got you so frickin' stuck. You're fixed so weirdly. You think I'm weird? That's because you have such a narrow view, mother. You're egocentric. Egocentric was one of Sydney's heftiest insults, but at least she was talking like a teenager. Cleo said, good. I'm glad I'm egocentric. I'm a frickin' egomaniac, because if I wasn't, I'd go completely crazy. Then she had a fresh idea. Wait, I didn't have a chance to tell you. I had a very interesting dream. Sydney made a so wet face. I don't like talking about dreams anymore. Your father was in it, and I think we met a magus. Sid hesitated. Like a magus? She was trying to remember what the word meant. He was sort of like a wizard with extra powers. A pause. Is it creepy? Are you in it? Yes, but it's not creepy. She rushed on before Sid could protest. I was in an art gallery with your dad. The kind of situation where people act cruel and wear black, sharing an egocentric idea of themselves. This man comes up to us and Farrar introduces him as the great artist. I check out his eyes to see if they're blue and brown like your grandfather's, but this man has huge black pupils that swallow up the whole eye. Sydney visualized this with fascinated horror, like his eyes were black holes? Black holes, yes. And your dad, he tells me, this great artist has gold in his yard and he grants you permission to use it. Not to sell, he says, to use. I thank the artist for the chance to use his treasure and promise him that I'll spin it into golden yarn. Then he picks up Farrar as if he's a little boy and turns away. This black-eyed man, this great artist, carried Farrar away in his arms like a baby. And I got scared. But then I realized in my dream that he's taking Farrar away to be completely loved. He'll be cherished the way he should be. He'll get this amazing total transfusion of love. Cleo paused. Sydney hadn't moved. So, Cleo said, that's it. Sydney sat still as stone, staring into space. Aren't you tired, darling? Don't you want to put your head down? Cleo turned out the light again. Let's get some sleep. But Sydney remained upright. Then she spoke in a plaintive tone. I know what it's like to be totally loved. Oh, your dad and I love you so much. Not like that. Not that egocentric kind of love. Cleo asked, another kind? Like the man with the gold he let you use. Well, he was just a phantom. What I had was serious. Okay. Cleo lay still and held her breath. Total, Sydney said. Love isn't always nice, mother. You should know that. What does that mean? Sydney answered imperiously. It means, she was trying not to hesitate. Sometimes you might be loved and you know perfectly well that you're not even on the radar. It means you love and you're loved very, very much, but you know you're not important to the, she drifted to a stop. Her attention wandered to the window. Clio asked softly, "Did someone love you not nicely?" She reviewed the men at Five Towers, Mark, Santiago, Jay, none of them a candidate. She could see Sydney's profile against the deep blue night, the morning star wavering in the atmosphere. Sydney said, "I felt love like come over me, like physical and sort of rough, like a cat's tongue, a lion's, a tiger, or a leopard, like a wild cat's tongue." She laughed shrilly, up one, down, upside and down the other. I felt love everywhere. Cleo bolted till she was standing in the middle of the star-swayed room. "What are you talking about?" Sydney, with a raspy, boyish voice, told her, "Calm down." "Sydney, what cat? What tongue?" Aware now that this information was tormenting her mother, Sydney began slowly to elaborate. "Or like wings, like huge, powerful wings, a swan's wing, cruel. I mean, not cruel and mean like a person would be. It wasn't human, not the least bit human." She looked directly at Cleo now, searching for the correct words. "Like I didn't exist in a single particle of this like being when its wing or whatever, when its tongue brushed me. It was like the power of life, of like existence, when it's completely, I mean, really totally not me, not of me, completely other than me." Sydney paused for a moment, then added wonderingly, "It's strange blood. I mean, I don't even know if it had blood. It was this presence." She recovered her disdain for her irrelevant mother and concluded, "So, yeah, when something like that happens, it rearranges just about everything." She softened. "It's okay, Mom. I can handle it." "Handle what?" Cleo whispered. Sydney opened her eyes wide with exaggerated drama. "My future." And then more seriously, "My inheritance." "Your inheritance?" Theo didn't think that Sid was talking about money. "What made you go down into the mine, Sydney?" Sydney was nodding her head as if in approval of what Cleo hadn't said. "Grandma Ella loved to go down deep, didn't she? And you didn't." Cleo could feel her daughter separate herself into her own life. It hurt physically, but her voice was strong. She agreed, "Yes, we're different, my darling, you and I. You and your grandmother aren't afraid to go deep."
Okay, how do we even start a conversation after that? I'm going to start with just a couple of my observations about reading this novel, Margaret, because I've been reading your writing for decades,
40 years or something.
something like that. And this novel, like all of your novels, is kind of, I was thinking as I was driving over here, it's kind of like a spider web with a lot of preoccupations that kind of overlap with one another and connect with one another. And I wrote you this note when I started it to say, okay, like dread. There's a lot of dread in this novel. And I think you can hear that, yeah, it's like not unpleasant dread, I suppose. But it's much more, it's kind of conjuring a lot of sort of unknowns and a lot of danger, I think, this whole novel. And I think you can definitely hear that in the piece that you read. There's a way that there's a kind of thing that's beyond explanation that kind of rolls through the whole novel.
Yeah.
And I know that it's it's got a very strong story that sits on top of everything that is kind of the motor. But I don't think we should talk about that because we want to leave lots of, investment in dread. Everybody should be able to experience dread. I don't want to, spoil anything. So what I thought we would do instead is talk about some of those preoccupations that just kind of roll their way through. So since you read that piece, two of the things that I think are related that I want you to talk about is there are a lot of artists in this novel. There's a dancer and there's a clothing designer and there's a kind of a cool father artist who works in his blacksmith shop, and there's all sorts. And it feels to me like the presence of the artist is connected to that theme that happens to Sydney and that happens underground. And I think those things are connected in some way. And I wonder, is that enough for you to get started on?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Certainly, I drew a lot of spirals and petals and overlapping and trajectories of how characters would hit each other, and something might burst out the way things do. And it began really with the idea of how to exceed being human, which I think these artists are trying to do. And like say Farrar as an artist, he's a foundryman who builds plumbing fixtures, but that's creative. And he builds a business, which is creative. And he's always challenging himself and trying to exceed himself, which is both creative and destructive. And then his father, who has one blue eye and one brown eye, and it's about hybrids too, because his father's always making sculptures that are hybrids, a horse with feathers and human eyes. And then thinking too that marriage also is a bit of a hybrid, is a bit of a mutant. So I think, especially with our crisis in the climate, that there's so much, people the billionaires are just so done with Earth. And there is to exceed, you read about, say, Peter Thiel wanting to escape the human. So I think all of these are sort of the same kind of impulse that are destroying the world, and also yield some really wonderful contraptions. And we're driven to it. We're driven to exceed ourselves. And I began with the idea of transcendence and metamorphosis, which is, we transform. There's a blacksmith who transforms lumps of coal into various wonderful things. And they all have to kind of transform themselves because they have to accept change and loss. So we're all constantly having to transcend what we were and become something new always in our lives. So yeah, those are the threads. Yeah,
That's a few of them.
yeah.
That's actually a really interesting way to think about what happens in this marriage, because it's an environmental novel. It's a kind of mystery. It's kind of thriller, but it's also family It's about family dynamics, which we
Yes.
could really hear in that piece too.
Yeah.
And there's right from the start, there's this kind of, yeah, I used to call them mutant, that's actually very funny, but there's this kind of dynamic between that couple. And I think a lot of the novel is really exploring what is it to be in close relationship with someone
Yes.
who has their own will and their own, drive and urge to create, and how both those characters are kind of watching one another and sensitive to when things are getting bottled up or stopped up, or blocked in some way, and the kind of worry about that, but also the challenge with bridging silence or with withheld information, and so that kind of danger piece is there too, but also that couple has to keep transcending it's coupleness too.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny, like, and two, where I think the basis of our lives is often triangular, a man, woman, and a child, kind of the basic triangle. And then we're in this enormous epic scene that, especially now, the way we are dealing with media and the news, we all know what's going on right now tonight, and the violence in the world. And so we have these sort of, I think too, of a bicycle, and all these gears that get bigger and bigger. So, and two, you're trying to tell a story through characters, and characters who love each other, because that gives you some energy. And the kind of courage that they have to demonstrate and exercise in kind of letting each other go. And two, there was quite a lot. There was more about hypnosis in earlier drafts, but I wanted to keep the hypnosis, and I went and got hypnotized, and it was a wonderful and interesting experience. I just wanted to see if it was real, and it's good. I'd recommend it. It's true. It's really good. You might want to go tonight. You just get so elsewhere, and but then where we are in, say, in a family or a marriage, it's an incursion too, and we have to give each other space, so to speak, privacy. And so he kind of enters her dreams, and he wants access to her dreams, which is really, if I'm ever a marriage counselor, I say, leave her dreams. Just let her dream by herself. Don't go into her dreams. So he sort of broaches a very, very, a space for her that she has to recover. Yeah.
He gets frightened, I think.
Yeah.
And controlling.
Yeah. I don't know if he's controlling. I don't know, I'm very fond of him. I never thought of him as controlling. I think he thinks he's, like, another thing is, people doing really harmful things with terrific intentions, So I never thought of him as a bad man at all. I always really liked him a lot. I don't think he is a bad man at all.
No, he's not a bad man.
Yeah. There's only one bad guy.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. He's pretty bad, that guy. I'd say he's pretty bad. But just when you're talking about the letting go piece, I think maybe that's one of the things that comes through so clearly in the piece that you read.
Yeah.
That very hard thing when you're the mother of a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And they have to identify themselves in a way in opposition to you, right? And sort of that's one of the challenges with parenting. And I think you just caught that so beautifully there, that the mother really has to handle, okay, I'm feeling excluded here, and I'm feeling like my daughter has had some sort of experience that I don't know, and I'm worried, but I don't know. You can't read your daughter's dreams either, right?
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. So
Yeah.
you have to have enough courage to let them have the space they need to grow.
Yeah.
Will you talk a little bit about the bad man?
The witch?
The bad man?
The bad man. The bad man. Well, one of the lines is, you know, when was it that, was it something like when was it that thugs don't run the world? And there's a painting in there of the Annunciation scene, and you know, there's a lovely one with Gabriel and Mary, and everyone looks very middle class in the 16th century. But then there's one where it looks like Robert Duvall in The Godfather is Gabriel. You're coming with me. And I think it was painted as that. I think the painter was depicting the criminal side of power, and which is something that we're all really, really experiencing right now, a generalized mafia. And so, and being a writer, I know nothing about money, so I had to really work hard to understand money laundering. But it was appropriate to this book because the money is under, and it has gone under. You know, you look, they're talking about the 1%. The money's gone under. And so on the opposite side of that, there is a basis of trust. And where there's hawala, they transfer money internationally to help each other without banks, and it's built on integrity and trust and humanness. And then it gets used, then it can become corrupted and be used to hide money from selling drugs, etc. So that became kind of like a metaphor for the subconscious, the dreams, and our politics, and how this feeling of the power too is running under us, that we're losing a sense of control. It's just the lines just running through our hands, giving us a rope burn. So that was the bad guy, and he was fun too. Charlene's image of the spider web was certainly, I drew that in my notebooks too. And who is at the center, you know, became a question of the book. And I won't tell you that. And so he became a lovely sort of figure of kind of a nihilism, of devouring other people's desires and making use of them, which is sort of what criminals like to do. He was a lot of fun too, because he's Romanian and he's from Transylvania. So I couldn't go to Romania, I didn't have the money, but I watched a lot of YouTube. I know all about Romania. I know what they eat, I know what their washrooms are like. And I know what their color, their money. And so he was fun because he was kind of that Vlad the Impaler kind of guy up in his mountain. But you know, he's human too.
He's insatiable, though, hey?
Yeah. Well, don't you find that that's kind of at the heart of so much of our problems now? Insatiability. Yeah. I mean, he's not, he's very, very, very greedy person. Yeah. And you know, the idea that like life is ruthless. Anyone who's lost, anyone knows how ruthless life itself is, utterly ruthless. So, but then it's always kind of a shock too, to run into human beings who are also ruthless. And it's a different kind of ruthless. And we're not really, I'm not ready for it. You get punched in the head, it takes you by surprise. So he's a very dangerous guy. But there's another thing, there's another layer that I can't tell you about.
Secrets. There's a lot of secrets.
Yeah, it's a secret. Yeah.
I just want to connect a little bit the bad guy, Mr. Vlad the Impaler, with his interest in gold, because gold is also something that spirals through this novel.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking we encounter it in different ways, like gold as as financial wealth. I mean, that's what people are buying now, right? Because currency is kind of failing. Failing might be a little bit strong, it's too strong. But there's also a lot of conversation about other kinds of metals, and and also gold is a very beautiful thing. There's that stunning scene where it's just like looking at the sun, and the dream with, where the main artist or whatever he's called, you can use my gold to this gold, it just kind of pops up
Yeah.
a lot of times, and yet at the same time, the foundry and the father, the blue eye, brown eye father, don't work with gold. And I'm just curious about that. There's a sort of refusal to work with that very, very precious metal to kind of raise up the less fancy kind of metals and such. So I just wondered if you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, Farrar, the foundryman, the husband figure, the male, there's a male and female characters, and they go back and forth. And the male, Farrar, is a foundryman. He works, but he loves zinc. And so I watched a lot of YouTubes of zinc, but I love zinc now too. It's very beautiful. It's glows, and he kind of likes it, I think, because it isn't gold, and that he attributes. Therefore, I think he feels that he can work with it and participate in it, and it's one of the first things that he melts down. He makes brass. First thing he's 18, 19 years old, and he makes brass, and it burns his eyes almost. It's so bright. And the idea too, though, of gold, like it was in the 70s, it was still, you couldn't trade in gold. It was at $34 an ounce. And then they kind of unleashed it into the market. Now it's at around 5,000 an ounce right now. But also the way, say, weirdly, Venezuela was taking gold to Iran and funneling power to Iran. They were in Romania in this gold mine that they wanted to build. They wanted to expand it like crazy and cut off the top of the mountain and move the village. So it was a very imperial resource extraction. And in there is the Roman mines. So the expanse of time, millennial expanse of time from year one in our era to now, and they're still fighting over it, and the Roman, there's still evidence of the Roman mines there. But when the Romans, when the Dacians were the indigenous tribe, and they made art from gold, and it was integrated into their ecology. It was part of their hunting and part of their spiritual relationship with what was feeding them. And then, according to Margaret Sweatman, I think this is kind of right, but I don't know. I'm glad this isn't a doctoral exam.
Oh, but it is.
that the Romans came and exploited their gold, took their gold, and then the rest is history. And so the different attitude towards an element, and to the arbitrariness of that we attribute this value to this metal, but also it is stardust. Like there are these, it actually is stardust. So it did come to us and hid. And so, I mean, for a writer, I mean, it's just such a sweet metaphor. It went down underground, and then we dug it up again, and then it became empire. I mean, it's just begging. You can have it. You can have my story too. It's such a beautiful metaphor for the way we're like now with crypto and everything. The way we're attributing, we kind of attribute value to these things. But gold, yeah, two stars collide. What do you know? And then it falls to earth. So again, to this transcendence, that an element did come from another space, that we were visited by gold.
That you have to go into the very dark, dangerous depths to retrieve it.
Yes.
So that's part of the
Yes.
the actual action in the novel, but also I think of the meaning layers that you're playing with.
Yeah, and the art, like the difference between an artisan and a major corporation. So and the way that the impoverished artisan miner would go and use mercury solution, and women are holding their kids and they're handling mercury. But and how violent some of that mining became. There are little kids with AK-47s fighting for the gold mine. But the novel begins, and you can tell this, is that with the cyanide, like they use cyanide. You probably know this better than me, but they use it to separate the ore, and so then of course it drips in, and there really was a breach of the dam around a tailing pond in 2000 in Benari in Romania. And it did go into, like, as I described in my story, I moved it up to contemporary times and moved it a little bit into Transylvania, but it did happen, and it did go into the water, and it did kill the fish, and it did destroy the environment for a generation. And so when they wanted to do it again, there was and it's a Canadian company that wanted to do it again. I'm not, I think one of my lucky things in writing this book is I met Jeremy Gilmore, who wrote an endorsement in the back of the book, and I read his book. I recommend that you read his book because it's very, I think it'll help you respect actually some of the people who are involved in mining. They're not all Peter Zugravis from Transylvania. Yeah.
One of the things that strikes me in this novel, but really in, I think, pretty much all of your novels, as I'm going through them in my head, is this talent for staying very immediately in transactions between people who feel very real and are very much located in place. Like, I could see where Farrar and Clio live. I can imagine what their house is like.
Nice house.
Yeah, it's a great house. And going over that little bridge and the sky and it feels very local. It is very local. And your other very local space is the island. And that keeps us like so immediate in the lives of these characters who we're hanging out with. And there's always this very large scale sort of worry, I would say, that sits around, because all of those characters and those very particular places also belong to, a big world that has economic collapse, awful politics, environmental disaster. So in a way, this novel, we're always moving between those scales, which is a little bit dizzying sometimes, but you're kind of, even when I'm thinking about the mine disaster, and we know about that really early on, so that kind of sits as part of the core of dread, like, my God, we're coming up toward that thing. And at the same time, we're also aware that there's an abandoned gold mine on the island in the Whiteshell, or Lake of the Woods. So there's a way that it's present and local to us, and I guess the Foundry is like that too, and that it also is elsewhere and sort of too big to fathom.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's not a question, but I guess I'm just really thinking about the navigating that for you as a writer. You obviously are very concerned with those really large issues that are scaring the bejesus out of us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the small issues, like, how do you get along with your daughter?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always, I think it's the most fun thing about writing stories is that the intimate and then the big, the small and the big, the intimate and the epic has always been. And then when you're designing a story or designing a novel or something, you're always thinking, okay, what's really important to, devote the next several years thinking about, and then how do I make it matter to the metabolism, and to kind of really, feel it. And it also is a lot of fun because then when you're in the characters, you're looking around and you get to occupy this other psyche and see the things through their eyes. So you get to leave yourself, hallucinate.
I was wondering, I guess I'm gonna just offer this as my experience, but I feel like the dread, that low level dread that I feel as a reader in this book isn't dissipated by the story. The story, I feel like the story that you're telling allows me to access a kind of low level dread that hangs around me all the time. I feel like you don't give us an exit from the dread. You allow us to sort of feel it and realize that it is a part of our present moment if we're paying attention.
Yeah. You know, and I know that this is true for a lot of writers. I've heard a lot of writers say this, that they can't get outside. Like we can't, you know, and I don't want to, you know, I mean, then the act of tenderness or whatever, or mercy, comes from sharing this concern. But I don't think we can escape it. Yeah. So, and the characters, I mean, it's really, really important, as all of us know, we're writing, you know, characters have to love each other, and even the bad guys have to have love. And so it does provide the blood to the thing. But yeah, I wish, but you know, and every era feels maybe that it's apocalyptic, but this one feels particularly troubling. It really is.
Maybe especially like right now.
Yeah, it's this week. Yeah.
So for you, the places that have the gold in them, that are the places where the people are connected. There's even some really beautiful moments with people that maybe aren't necessarily totally safe, but who offer a certain kind of refuge or care.
Well, and I think, yeah, and like there's the characters, almost all, and even Peter Zugravi, the bad Vlad from Transylvania, has a moral center. They all, and one of the characters who I came to love very much, Theo Jones, comes in later in the book. He has a lot of integrity, and so that too gives us a lot of hope about being human. That these guys make decisions that are difficult for themselves, and they're not, and they're willing to, as Sydney observes of her mother and her grandma, they dig deep, you know. So and it takes a lot of courage, and they're willing to be lonely to do that. Yeah.
So far you said you've researched zinc, and you've researched Romania, and you've researched money systems,
Yeah.
and probably, no doubt, many other things that you won't even tell. Bathrooms in Romania, I think you mentioned that. So that's obviously blacksmithing.
There are really good blacksmith YouTubes out there. It's really good. It really is.
This is how we're going to figure out what we're going to do when we're not reading, right? Like I'm going to look up the blacksmithing.
Oh yeah, YouTube blacksmithing. It's fantastic.
I can tell that you were loving those things.
Oh, I do love that, and I have a book. I tormented the grandchildren briefly when they come for dinner, but the book is a book of my field book of rocks and so on. I mean, I can't understand it, you know, I'm good at it, but I studied that a lot. It's just so good. The words are so beautiful too. Ironstone and all that. Beautiful words.
You've always liked words. We've like lots of cool. Give me a few extra consonants. Given all these this constellation, let's say, of topics that you may or may not have known about, what I'm really curious to know is, what was the little thing that stuck in you that made you like stick with this novel? Like, where did it start, or what is that little nub that wouldn't let you go?
I think it was transcendence. Like I wrote a master's. I almost flunked too. I wrote a master's degree in The Marvelous. When my kids were very little. And The Marvelous is kind of it's sort of a version of fantasy that has Christian or religious aspects of transcendence. And that was really when I quit teaching and I had all this oxygen and I thought I'm going to read my thesis. And it wasn't as bad as the jury said it was. It's pretty good. And I thought, well, you know, what is it I love about reading? What do I love to read? And it was that I wrote that thesis because it was about the kind of literature that I love. You know, the old, as a teenager, C.S. Lewis and so on. And so I went back to what I really that really matters to me, you know, and I think to access a spirit that is beyond oneself is, you know, the most important thing. To remember that there's things that are much bigger than us, and to try and dwell on that or meditate on it or make up stuff about it and have characters who are seeking it. So that was really kept me, you know, it was, and that led to all those, again, I didn't really realize there were so many artists, but it led to the idea of people making stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that kept me going. And also, I mean, and one of my grandsons, you know, was saying how much he loves dreams. And dreams, I mean, what the heck is going on with us? Like, we dream. That is a total mystery. A total mystery. We are a mystery to ourselves. You know, like the mind is a complete bafflegab. Like, it's what the heck, we don't know. And the things that go on at night, like, so that is very, very inspiring always. My editor, you know, stop with the dreaming, you know. I don't like it. She said, I don't like it when people tell me their dreams. I said, I do, so move over.
You won that one.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, she probably removed a few.
She's wonderful. Bethany Gibson, just excellent editor. But yeah, she didn't want so many dreams. And I think I had to compromise a bit because you have to locate things for people. But it is wild. Dreams and people accessing spirit. It's beyond them. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, hypnosis is kind of in there too, right?
Yeah.
Like dreaming and art making.
Yes. Yes.
Like I'm sure you do when you are really like in a great place, when you're in story, like it doesn't even feel like you.
No, it's very fun. It's hydroplaning. Yeah.
Hydroplaning. You just hope when you come back to it in a sober moment that you still like it. And it's better than the jury said.
Yeah.
When did the gold show up?
I don't even know. Well, actually early, because I was researching this mine. I was fascinated by this mine in Rosia, Montana, Romania, and it's a gold mine. So I began to study gold mining, and then that led to all those other wonderful, wonderful metals. And zinc came early. Zinc is, I realized Farrar loves zinc. So there's a character, there's a man who loves zinc. I should marry him.
And so you did. I said, Clio, show up.
Yeah.
It's a fabulous read.
Thank you.
It is for a reader. It is also a way of kind of waking dreaming, to just enter someone else's constellation of characters and those little intersecting. I just kept thinking. I think I told you when I was first reading it. I feel like I have two brains going on at once. One is like, oh my God, I'm in this story and I've got all the emotions, and the other one is, damn, this is good writing. Damn, this is good writing. So I can tell you, damn, it's good writing. So maybe we'll open the floor for questions if you have questions for Margaret.
There's this magic man here.
We should make Johnny dash around because he's very good at dashing. See what I mean?
He's dashing.
It doesn't matter, except that's my sister. Explain my question. I've known you all your life and most of mine.
Literally.
Literally. When I began reading and realized that you're talking so much about money, I checked to be sure it was still you. And so my question really is, with all the time, the first time we spoke about this, you were surprised the mines were 3,000 feet deep. And here you are, an expert on the subject.
Right.
Watched on YouTube. How much more time was spent doing research than writing your beautiful prose? Or how much less? What's the ratio?
I think it's a great question. I think it's maybe 50-50 or something. Because it kind of curdles the research, and I'm sure there are many people here working in writing that feel that happens to you too, that you research and then you kind of, you go kind of dry and you want to make something up. And so then I would start writing, and then I'd realize I don't quite know enough and go back to research. So yeah, I see the heads nodding. It is.
I have one more question. You
Yeah.
exposed early that this is a Canadian April. So I looked up their finances today. I noticed in your book that on page 69, you mentioned Donald Trump's second term. And I thought, well, you hadn't, that must have been one of your final drafts. And then today, when I looked at the finances of that company, they're also 69 pages. Is that a fluke? Or is that what you're able to see?
That's just magic.
That's magic.
I love that you were talking about the transcendence and people accessing spirit. Because when you read that passage, I turned to Armin and I said, oh, she's talking about an angel. That was an angelic visitation. And I wondered if you had done research about that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff from all different cultures all around the world about that. And I was wondering if you've researched that.
Yes, thanks. Yes, I did. And well, and also say, in my 30s for this, my master's, it was the kind of literature that was looking at visitations and people being ecstatic, taken out of themselves. And I read, Yeats's Leda and the Swan, which I, didn't want to quote because it's kind of triggering. But that is a fascinating thing. And the Annunciation, I looked at a lot of versions of that. And it was very kind of unnerving actually writing those things. And I had to keep drafting it because it was a bit spooky. I'm not, it's a mystery, so I don't understand it fully, rationally. Yeah. But definitely that was, I think too, her, Sydney, this 15-year-old girl, experiencing something that wasn't of her was also, there's another aspect of this is a deep time sickness or toccato, where when people have experienced earthquakes, sometimes get a thing called toccato, deep time sickness, where they experience how small they are and how minuscule their moment of living is, and you actually physically experience that and you get bummed out, you got a stomachache. So she's also experienced that, and she says I can handle it, which is very brave of her, and that might be the only experience she has for the whole life of that moment, but it'll last her lifetime. So if any of you, of any of us, when we are kind of witness or engaged in just how massive life is, it can be very saddening, and you have to kind of gear up, for that. And that's that angel thing too. And two, you know, with the enunciation, like that's like they weren't doing Mary any great favors. She had, you know, that was a tough thing. You know, you're pregnant. Ah. You're gonna be part of something much bigger. Ugh.
Hello.
No.
I presume that writing a novel is hard.
Oh, it's terrible.
Okay, then this question is relevant. I'm just wondering if you can tell us without spoiling anything, what you struggled with the most when you're writing the book.
Great question. My editor. No, Bethany, I'm very, very grateful to Bethany Gibson. And I was her worst nightmare. But I think well, in a way, it's self-belief or something. You know, you just feel so stupid a lot of the time, and things that don't work, and you fail. You know, you have to write drafts that don't quite work. The thing might sag. There were logical inconsistencies, so I had to really do sort of tedious work, timelines and flow charts. So doing kind of a vertical and horizontal analysis of it, kind of just work. And generally, I think just feeling stupid. Like, you know, you do feel kind of stupid because some of the drafts flunk, you know, and or a scene just doesn't work, and so you have to kind of forgive yourself and compromise. Like, you know, I have all these fantastic books on my what's in your own head, and who cares? The who care matters. The who care question when I'm teaching, you know, it's sort of a principle of teaching creative writing. It's the who care question. Who cares? So you write the story, and then you get to this frame around it. Who cares? And so trying to discover that was, you know, and to keep it personal and keep it honest for myself. It's, you know, I think with anyone doing creative work, it's or any work, all work is creative. You know? It really is.
We can sneak in one more question before the close of the event, if there's one out there. Catherine Hunter.
Catherine Hunter. There's so many wonderful people.
I was just wondering if we're allowed to talk, ask about catabasis. Is that the right way to pronounce it?
Yeah, you and I talked a lot about that.
Yes, and I was thinking about this idea of transcendence you're talking
Yes.
about, but also this novel's about descent.
Yes, oh, Catherine. Yeah, because Farrar was first of all Theseus, one of the fellows who goes down to Hades, and has a lot of trouble with women. So yeah, and about the descent and into Hades, and same with Toccato or Deep Time Sickness. Yeah, and that like, they do leave you leave some of yourself behind. Persephone's story is always, it's fascinating always, and she leaves herself behind in a way. She's allowed to come up, but when you go down, you don't all come back up. So yeah, I read many scenes in Homer, you know, those and in the Iliad, that's a scary one. So those are the scenes of going down to hell. Yeah, that's and descending, as we all have to do sometimes in our lives. You have to go, you know, there's experiences in life that take us down. And I've seen many loved ones have to go through that. So yeah, it's a fun coming back up is interesting because they're different. So something has happened down there. Yeah.
It's a gold down or something.
The gold, yeah. Yeah.
well, I think I get to do the little rap here. And I just had this flash of a conversation that I had a long time ago with Robert Crouch, who said, like, do you have a favorite novel of mine? He said, and I said, which is, did he struggle with like all the failures? I'm not sure. But I said, I really love What the Crow Said. And he said, oh, a lot of people hate that book. And I said, oh. He said, you know what? It's because people don't believe in magic. And that book is about magic. And I was just thinking about that again, because there is a way in which, the sort of hyper-rational world that we live in, it sort of doesn't make a lot of room for magic, or for those experiences that are just a little bit beyond language, beyond explanation. And I think that is such a gift to us as readers, to just like let us have some of that gold. Let us go down, let us come up, let us feel the scary stuff, let us feel the courage. So bravo, it's a really, really fabulous novel.
You are.
What do you say? Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
You are free.
Oh, not yet. They have to put up with me for a minute. Thank you so much for your attention, for all your questions this evening. Thank you to Margaret and Charlene. We will be moving along to the signing portion of the evening. So if you would like to avail yourself of some of this gold, or ask for recommendations for blacksmithing videos or hypnosis, Margaret will be at this table just over here. We'll ask you just to line up all the way down the aisle. If the line looks too intimidating, feel free to just rest in your seat for a few moments. Please feel free to get a book signed. Just please pay for the book before you leave. We'd be very grateful. We're also very grateful to Goose Lane Editions, and I'll ask you to join me in one final round of applause for Charlene Diehl and Margaret Sweatman.